In this video, we'll solve Reading Academic Test 2, Passage 2 from Cambridge IELTS Book 19. There are three question types: matching information, or which paragraph contains the information, gap fill, and multiple choice questions. We'll do matching information questions last because the other two question types are usually easier to locate in the passage. It's better to tackle matching information question types once you are more familiar with the passage. We are starting with gap fill or sentence completion questions. These questions follow the same order as the information in the text. So we look for location keywords to find where the answer might be. In these questions, there is no name or any other easy to find word in the 19th question. But cortisol is mentioned in the 20th question. It seems the kind of word that we may find as it is in the passage. Cortisol is mentioned in paragraph D. So the answer to question 20 is expected to be in paragraph D. The answer to question 19 should be before that. Let's understand the 19th question. Performance stress means the pressure of needing to perform well. There are many demands because of performance stress. We are looking for one example of such demands, and that example is coping with or dealing with the risk of something happening. We have to find out what this something is. The keywords from this question that I'll keep in mind when scanning the passage are performance stress, example, possible, and risk. As discussed before, because we expect the answer of 20th question to be from paragraph D, the answer to the 19th question has to be before that. The words stress and performance are mentioned in paragraph C, but they are not together. However, at the very beginning of paragraph B, performance stress is mentioned. Also, potential dangers could mean possible risk that is mentioned in the question. So, we'll focus on paragraph B. In the beginning of the paragraph, it is mentioned that performance stress is unavoidable. Then it explains two factors which affect stress, and these two factors are demands and resources. Demands are explained first. After that, from here, resources are mentioned. We will focus on the demands part of the paragraph because the question mentions demands. The word include is mentioned in this sentence, which can suggest examples. However, this part does not mention risk. Later, three specific demands are mentioned: difficulty of the event, chance of succeeding, and potential dangers. Potential means possible, dangers means risk, such as means for example. There is a potential danger of, or there is a possible risk of injury. The answer to the 19th question is injury. It is important to note that I focused on this part of paragraph B. Immediately after this, the sentence has two words that are there in our question: cope and demands. But if we read this sentence, we see that this is the definition of what resources are. This is why we should try to understand the basic structure of the paragraph by scanning through it. In this case, because I was able to understand that there are two factors being discussed in this paragraph. The first one is being discussed here, which is demands. The second one starts from here. I was able to focus on the relevant part of the paragraph. Similarly, in paragraph C, we see the words performance, stress, and demands. To find the correct answer, we need to first understand the question and then try to match as many words from the question as possible to the words or their synonyms in the passage, as we were able to do in this case when we looked for potential dangers, which means possible risk. Let's start with the 20th question. We found the answer to the 19th question in paragraph B. Cortisol from the 20th question is mentioned in paragraph D. So we skip paragraph C and focus directly on paragraph D. The question asks what tennis players produced less of because of cortisol. And this something that is produced is good. In the beginning of paragraph D, cortisol is explained as a stress hormone. Cortisol is mentioned throughout this paragraph, but the question also mentions tennis players. Tennis players are mentioned only in the last sentence of the paragraph. So we only need to focus on this one sentence. Unsuccessful means not good. So more unsuccessful means fewer good. Associated with means connected to. So cortisol has been connected to or causes two things. One is more unsuccessful serves. The second is greater anxiety. The word anxiety cannot fit into this sentence. One, because more anxiety is being produced, not less, and writing fewer good anxiety is anyway incorrect. So the answer to the 20th question is serves. An important point to understand is that trying to understand the whole of paragraph D would have taken a lot of time. Since tennis is not mentioned earlier in the paragraph, focusing on keywords really helps save time. Also, not knowing the meanings of all the words does not mean you cannot find the answer. In this question, it's enough to understand that cortisol is something that affects something that tennis players do. You don't need to know exactly what cortisol is to get the answer. Spending time reading the whole paragraph, trying to understand what it is and what all it does, is not necessary to find the answer. Let's start with question number 21 now. The question means, with the help of psychologists, athletes can think that their physiological responses or their body's reactions are because of a good or a positive feeling. We are looking for an example of this positive feeling. We found the answer to the previous question, that is the 20th question, at the end of paragraph D. As we scan the passage, we see that psychologists are mentioned in paragraph F, and physiological responses are also mentioned in the same sentence. Both of these are mentioned in the 21st question. In paragraph F, we start looking for answer from here. The phrase psychologists can help athletes is there in both the question and the passage. Physiological responses are also mentioned in both. To view means how they see, that is how athletes see. A higher heart rate is a physiological response. Excitement is a positive feeling, nerves is a negative feeling. In the question, we are looking for an example of a positive feeling. So the answer is excitement. There are quite a lot of things in this paragraph which could confuse you. The word positively in the first sentence means in a good, helpful, or positive way. This is about how someone reacts it does not have any example of a positive feeling or emotion. The question mentions such as, which means we are looking for an example. Usually, when we have such as in the question, words like example and including can help us locate the answer. However, in this paragraph, such as is used multiple times and even the word example is mentioned. The word feeling, which is there in the question, is also mentioned in the paragraph. But that is not where the answer is. It helped that we focused on the sentence which has the word psychologists. But overall, it is always important to understand the question rather than just looking for the exact words or the exact synonyms in the passage. Moving on to the 22nd question. Psychological technique is a method used often by psychologists to understand, influence, or change how people think, feel, or behave. In this question, we are looking for an example of a psychological technique, and this technique can reduce stress response of an athlete. Since we are already at the last paragraph, the answer must be here. This is where we found the answer to the previous question. So we'll look for the answer to this question after this. We scan the paragraph for words such as example, psychological, and technique. Psychological skills are mentioned. Skills can mean methods or techniques. Physiological responses to threat means the body's reaction to stress. Athlete's stress response is the athlete's physiological responses to stress. An example of a psychological technique, therefore, is visualization. Such as means an example of, reduce means decrease. So the answer to the 22nd question is visualization. One reason for confusion could be something that we discussed in the 21st question as well, that such as is mentioned many times in the paragraph and the word example is also mentioned. So we can't just look for the exact words or synonyms, we need to understand the question. Also, we have the phrase help athletes learn how to deal with stress mentioned later in the paragraph, which may make you think that the answer should be here. But this sentence tells us that visualization means recreating something in mind. And then this sentence says that recreating can help athletes learn how to deal with stress. This recreating is referring to visualization. On your screen, you can see the locations of all the four gap fill answers that we have done till now. Let's summarize how we found them and the strategies that we used. For each question, we first identified the keywords, that is, the important words from the question that helped us locate the relevant section of the passage. Instead of reading the entire passage, we scanned the passage for the keywords that we identified. Based on these, we focused only on relevant parts of the passage. For example, in question 19, we focused on where performance stress and potential dangers are mentioned. In this, we focused only on the part which was talking about demands that are mentioned in the question. For question 20, we went directly to paragraph D because the word cortisol is mentioned only in paragraph D. And even in this paragraph, we focused only on the last sentence because tennis players are mentioned only in the last sentence of this paragraph. So, this is the only sentence that mentions both tennis players and cortisol. We did not read every word of the passage. In fact, we didn't read paragraphs A, C, and E at all. We read only parts of paragraphs B, D, and F, skipping unnecessary details. This approach saves a lot of time and effort, especially when you are under exam pressure. By identifying and scanning keywords, you avoid getting overwhelmed by the entire passage. Understanding the question helps you focus only on what is needed. Even if you don't understand everything in the passage, you can still find the correct answer using this strategy. This is an essential and effective strategy for solving gap fill questions in IELTS reading. Now, let's move on to the next set of questions, the multiple choice questions. For each question, there are two correct answers. Locating the answer in the passage is straightforward. In the first question, the name of a person is mentioned. In the second question, the paragraph number is mentioned. For multiple choice questions, first, find the tentative location of the answers. Second, understand the question and the options. Then, read the relevant part of the passage closely. Eliminate or cross out any options that you realize are wrong as you keep reading the passage. Let's begin with questions 23 and 24. Both Emma and Wimbledon are mentioned in paragraph A and in paragraph C. So the answer could be in either of these two paragraphs. Now let's understand the question and go through all the options. Emma withdrew from Wimbledon, that is, she left the Wimbledon tournament. What two facts about this are mentioned in the passage? The parts of the options that I'll keep in mind when I look for the answers are in bold on your screen. Meanings of some of the words from the question are also on the screen. Option A is about when or at what stage of the tournament she withdrew. For example, beginning, middle, or the end of the tournament, or maybe a specific match could be mentioned. Option B mentions symptoms or signs of her stress, like we have symptoms of illnesses. Option C talks about measures or actions or steps that Emma took during Wimbledon to manage her stress. Option D mentions specific parts of Wimbledon that led to stress. Option E is looking for reactions to Emma's social media posts. That is, we are looking for what people said or commented on what she shared on social media. Let's look for the answer in the passage now. First, we'll look through paragraph A. This sentence tells us that during competition, there are a lot of physical demands and psychological pressure. After this, it says that this is what Emma wrote about her withdrawal from Wimbledon. That is, she wrote on social media that there are a lot of physical demands and psychological pressure during competition. But it does not mention any particular stage or aspect of Wimbledon. So it may seem to refer to option D, but no specifics about Wimbledon are mentioned here. It only says competition, not what aspect of the competition or what aspect of Wimbledon. Therefore, at least from here, we can say that option D doesn't seem to be the correct answer. Social media posts are mentioned, but in the passage, there is no mention of any reactions to this social media post. So, from paragraph A, We see some mentions of options D and E, but they are not fully supported by what is mentioned in paragraph A. So, option E also seems to be incorrect till here. The next sentence in paragraph A describes issues of breathing and heart rate, which are symptoms of stress she experienced during Wimbledon. So, option B is correct. In this sentence, during a match is mentioned, but this cannot correspond to option A. One, because no specific match is mentioned, and secondly, this is about what she was feeling as a result of the stress. It doesn't mention that it was during this particular match that she withdrew from Wimbledon. In paragraph C, Emma is mentioned towards the end. So we focus on this part. Much larger audience, higher expectations, facing a more skillful opponent. All of these are specific aspects of Wimbledon that increased Emma's stress levels, ultimately leading to a threat response. Threat here refers to stress. Based on information in paragraph A, we had figured out that option B is one of the correct answers, but there was not enough information to support option D. But in paragraph C, there is a mention of aspects of Wimbledon that increased stress levels, which are much larger audience, higher expectations, and facing a more skillful opponent. So the second correct answer is D. Just to quickly review this, option A asks for the stage when Emma dropped out of Wimbledon. During a match is mentioned in the passage, but this is in context of her symptoms, not her withdrawing from Wimbledon, and a particular match is not mentioned. So option A is incorrect. Option C asks for the steps which were taken to reduce or manage her stress levels. The passage says that she did not have the resources to tackle the demands of Wimbledon. There is no mention of any steps or measures being taken to deal with the stress. Option E refers to social media posts. Social media post is mentioned in the passage, but the option in the question specifically mentions reactions to the post. The passage has no mention of any reactions to what Emma posted on social media. So option E is also incorrect. So the correct answers to questions 23 and 24 are B and D. Let's start with questions 25 and 26. We are looking for facts or information about anxiety which are mentioned in paragraph E. Let's first understand the options. The important keywords are in bold on your screen. For option A, we are looking for reasons or conditions that affect how serious anxiety can be. For option B, we are looking for the time it takes for the effects of anxiety to become apparent or noticeable. That is, how long does it take before the symptoms show? So, we are looking for some time period. This could be hours, days, months, or years. Option C is about what symptoms or signs of anxiety are most commonly experienced. That is, we are looking for the common symptoms of anxiety. Option D looks for a reference to different types of athletes. The different types of athletes could be depending on the sport they are playing or at what level they are playing. And we are looking for which types of athletes have a higher chance of getting anxiety. Option E is about the negative effects if anxiety occurs repeatedly or frequently. In paragraph E, several symptoms of anxiety are mentioned. They are highlighted in green. So, symptoms such as muscle tremors, weakness, stomach pain, and headaches are mentioned. However, option C is not just about symptoms, it is about which symptoms are most frequently encountered. That is, we are looking for symptoms that happen very often. But the paragraph does not specify which of these symptoms occur more often as compared to others. In the paragraph, it is mentioned in more extreme cases. This refers to how serious or how severe anxiety is, not how often a symptom occurs. Later, repeated episodes of anxiety are also mentioned. This is about anxiety happening again and again. This is not about some symptoms occurring more than others. So, option C is incorrect. There is no mention of how long it takes for anxiety to become apparent or for the symptoms of anxiety to show. Let's look at option A now. The paragraph clearly says that the intensity with which a person experiences anxiety, that is, how severe the anxiety is, depends on the demands and resources they have. These are the factors on which it depends how severe or how serious anxiety is. So, the factors which determine how severe anxiety may be are mentioned in the passage. So, A is correct. The last sentence of this paragraph refers to repeated episodes of anxiety. That is, it refers to anxiety happening again and again or too often. This says that if anxiety happens too often, it can increase risk of heart disease and depression. These are the possible harm or negative effects that are possible if anxiety happens too often or if there are repeated episodes of anxiety. So, option E is also correct. There is no mention of different types of athletes in this paragraph. So, option D is incorrect. So, the answers to questions 25 and 26 are A and E. Now, we'll start with the matching information questions. We are given some statements in the question. These statements have some information, and we have to find out which paragraph in the passage has this information. For this question type, I usually recommend that you do it after doing the other question types once you are a little familiar with the passage. For matching information questions, we first read all the questions. The key parts of each question are highlighted on the screen. In the 14th question, we are looking for a mention of two chemical compounds that affect performance. So we keep in mind that we are looking for names of chemicals. In the 15th question, we are looking for more than one example of strategies or methods that athletes use to reduce the effects of stress. In the 16th question, we are looking for one sportsperson, which means most probably we'll find the name of a person here. For the 17th question, we are looking for a study or a research. The 18th question mentions people or individuals who play a role in helping athletes view or understand their stress response. We are likely to see coaches, psychologists, etc., mentioned in this context. An important instruction for these questions is that you may use any letter more than once. Before doing this question, check if this instruction is mentioned. In this case, we have 5 questions and 6 paragraphs, and still more than one answer can come from the same paragraph. These are some strategies which can help you find answers for matching information questions. Some questions have clear hints that tell us what we are looking for. In the 16th question, we are looking for the name of a person. In the 14th question, we are looking for names of chemicals. And for the 17th question, we can first look for mention of some statistics or figures which may tell us that a study or research is mentioned. Sometimes we can use information we have already come across while solving the other questions. For example, while solving the 20th question, we came across the mention of cortisol. Similarly, for the 23rd and 24th questions, we came across the name of a sportsperson, and in the 21st question, we came across psychologists. If there are no such hints in a question, I recommend that you skim the beginning and the end of each paragraph. I usually start with only the beginning of the paragraphs. If that doesn't work, then I read the ends as well. This gives us an idea of what the paragraph discusses. If none of these strategies work, then we scan the passage with keywords from the questions in mind. When doing this, we start with focusing more on the parts of the passage that we have not read through when solving the other questions. Let's start with the 14th question. A compound is a substance made of 2 or more components, and a chemical compound is a substance made of 2 or more components which are joined by a chemical bond. For example, water is a chemical compound. In human bodies, there are many chemical compounds such as hormones and enzymes which play essential roles in body functions. Since the passage is about human stress and how the body reacts to it, and it focuses on stress in athletes, chemical compounds in the question refers to substances in the body such as hormones and enzymes. When solving question number 20, we came across cortisol in paragraph D. The first sentence of paragraph D mentions production of adrenaline and cortisol, which are both stress hormones. Hormones are chemicals which are produced in the body. Later in the paragraph, it is explained how adrenaline increases the amount of blood pumped during stress or competitions, while cortisol has the opposite effect. That is, it reduces the amount of blood pumped, which leads to comparatively bad performance. So, in paragraph D, 2 chemical compounds or hormones are mentioned, adrenaline and cortisol. One of them improves performance, the other one has a negative impact on the performance. So the answer to the 14th question is D. In the 15th question, we are looking for 2 or more strategies or methods that reduce the effects of stress. The entire passage is about stress. The whole passage is about stress, how athletes face it, the symptoms of stress, but we are looking for specific examples of techniques or methods that help reduce stress. The first 2 strategies don't seem to work in this case because I've not read about any such thing while doing the other questions. So I'll start going through the beginning of each paragraph. These are the first sentences from all the paragraphs. Paragraph A introduces the challenges of being an athlete. Paragraph B mentions that some stress is almost unavoidable. Paragraph C mentions how different circumstances affect whether an athlete would respond positively or negatively to stress. Paragraph D talks about how the body responds to stress. Paragraph E says that anxiety is a common experience. Paragraph F starts with, but there are many ways athletes can ensure they respond positively under pressure. The beginnings of paragraph C, D, and F could indicate something about managing stress. But paragraph F clearly says many ways to respond positively to stress. The many ways could be the many strategies. Now I'll go through paragraph F to make sure whether examples of such strategies are mentioned in paragraph F. Paragraph F mentions different ways or strategies which athletes can use to minimize the effects of stress. A good hint is the repeated use of such as and the word example in this paragraph. So, the examples of different strategies are the language that is used by the coaches or parents, psychological skills such as visualization, etc. So, the answer to the 15th question is F. Having found this answer, I realized when looking for the answer to the 22nd question, I had read about a psychological technique which would be a strategy or a method to reduce stress. But I had not thought of it when I was looking for the answer first. I should have. Moving on to the 16th question. Accounted for means how someone explained or described something that happened to them. That is how someone explained their own experience. So we are looking for mention of a specific sports person and their description of or their explanation of how they experienced stress. When looking for answers to questions 23 and 24, we came across the name of a sports person, Emma Raducanu. This is the only name that is mentioned in the passage. She is a sports person who played in Wimbledon and withdrew from Wimbledon because of stress. Emma is mentioned in paragraphs A and C. We'll focus on the part of the paragraphs where Emma is mentioned. In paragraph A, it is written that Emma wrote about her withdrawal from Wimbledon. She wrote about the physical demands and psychological pressures during competition. The psychological pressure refers to stress, difficulty regulating her breathing and heart rate refers to her account of her experience. In paragraph C, reasons for her withdrawal are described, much larger audience, higher expectations, etc. So, experience of stress is mentioned in both paragraphs A and C. However, the question asks how she accounted for her own stress. That is what she herself said about her experience. This is only found in paragraph A. The answer to the 16th question is A. This is an example of how solving the other question types helps us find out answers to matching information questions more easily and quickly. Moving on to the 17th question. 17th question mentions results of some study or research. For this question, I had expected some mention of the name of a scientist or some numerical data of the results. However, the passage has only one name, which we have discussed in the previous question, and there are no numbers or figures in the passage. We already read through the beginnings for each of the paragraphs, but from these, we can't really understand where some study could be mentioned. So we scan through the passage with the keywords from this question in mind, and we focus more on the parts of the passage that we have not read through for any of the other questions. In paragraph C, we have found two answers till now, but we only focused on the part which mentioned Emma. While scanning through the rest of the passage, we find a clear mention of research shows. This sentence says, research shows that challenge states lead to good performance, while threat states lead to poor performance. Before this, in the paragraph, it is mentioned that challenge state refers to positive stress response and threat state refers to negative stress response. So, challenge state and threat states are stress responses, and this study or research shows links between the stress responses and performance. So, the answer to the 17th question is C. Let's start with the 18th question now. Here we are looking for a mention of people who influence or affect how athletes perceive or view their own stress responses. While solving the 15th question, we identified paragraph F as having several strategies to reduce stress. This includes the role of psychologists. We also came across psychologists when solving the 21st question, which clearly mentions that psychologists can help athletes to view or to perceive their physiological responses or the responses of their body. So, the people who influence how athletes view or perceive their stress response are psychologists, and they are mentioned in paragraph F. So, the answer to the 18th question is F. With this, we have covered all the questions for this passage. It's important to note that each question type comes with its own features and solution strategies, which we have gone through in detail while solving the questions in this video. I hope this was helpful to you. In my next video, I'll be posting the solution to the next passage of this test. All the very best.